again, everybody. Welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. We got a women's basketball report for you today. Emerson Phillips with staff writer Collyn Taylor from GamecockCentral.com. Collyn, we got a huge matchup at the CLA coming up on Thursday night for Gamecock women. South Carolina currently number 7 in the nation in the AP poll that's out this week with an 18-3 overall record, and the Gamecock women will take on the UConn Huskies on Thursday night. It'll be a 7 o'clock tip. The game will be nationally televised on ESPN. And, Collyn, these two teams are winners of the last 5 national championships in women's basketball. Dawn Staley's club cutting down the nets to win it all last year, and UConn had won the previous 4 national championships. So we got a real clash of the Titans at the CLA Thursday night.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look back at college, women's college basketball over the last, 5 or 6 years, these are 2 of the premier teams in the sport, along with, obviously Notre Dame, Baylor, and Tennessee. But, these 2 teams are kind of been a class of their own over the course of, the last, 5 or 6 years when, Dawn Staley made her first tournament run, the first Final Four, obviously, last year with the national title. But, UConn's obviously, obviously the Goliath of women's basketball, and they're poised to be like that again this year, so it should be a fun one. It's always a fun one when these teams meet. The environment's just electric, and they sold out Colonial Life last time they came to town, and I was in the stands for that game. It was nuts. So I expect a lot of the same this year when the Huskies come rolling into town.
UConn women are 20-0. They beat Tulane 98-45 on Saturday, and that was UConn's 78th straight regular season conference win. That's the 3rd longest streak in Division I women's basketball history. And, Collyn, the Gamecocks beat Missouri over the weekend 64-54. And that South Carolina-Missouri series has become quite a heated rivalry. We had a couple of Missouri players ejected, players mixing it up at one point during the ball game, and 2 Missouri players came off the bench and got ejected in that game on Sunday at the CLA. And the Gamecock women got a big game from Asia Wilson, 15 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 block shots. So Carolina in a stretch of tough games right now with the Gamecock women having just beaten 11th-ranked Missouri. Carolina's got number 1 UConn on Thursday night at home. And then after the UConn game, Collyn, the Gamecock women will travel to number 2-ranked Mississippi State.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not an easy stretch of games by any stretch of the imagination. You got 3 straight games against ranked opponents, 2 against teams that are ranked in the top, 1 and 2 usually in the polls, and UConn and Mississippi State, I don't think they've lost a game combined this year. So it'll be a big test for a team that really isn't all that deep right now with some injuries piling up and, some young players that are having to get some big minutes. So it should be a good test for a team that's going to make the tournament. And it should be a fun one, and I think that the UConn game is huge, but I think that winning in your conference and winning against Missouri and potentially Mississippi State's going to be even bigger in the long run, just because it helps win. It could help them win an SEC title by the end of the season.
So UConn women 20-0, and Mississippi State's women are 22-0. The Gamecocks' next 2 opponents, both unbeaten, and the top 2 teams in the country right now, and both obviously made the Final Four a year ago. In fact, Gamecock women beat Mississippi State in that championship game a year ago after Mississippi State had ended UConn's long winning streak in the national semifinals last year. So a great matchup at the CLA, 7 o'clock start. It'll be on ESPN, national TV ball game for the Gamecocks and UConn. And Collyn, you look at the Gamecock women this year, 18-3. The 3 losses have come against top 15 teams. They lost to number 6 Notre Dame early in the year. They lost at number 15 Missouri, and then they lost at home to 6th-ranked Tennessee. But Gamecock women have got a handful of wins over ranked opponents this year, including a road win over 15th-ranked Maryland, and 3 home wins over ranked teams, number 14 Duke, number 22 Texas A&M, and then Sunday over 11th-ranked Missouri. But, as good as all these teams are, Collyn, we know that UConn sets the standard in women's basketball. I think a lot of folks nationally feel like, the Gamecocks caught a bit of a break last year, not having to face UConn in the tournament. But Dawn Staley and the squad will tell you that, those are the breaks. And the bottom line is that Gamecock women won 6 straight when they had to last year in the tournament to earn that national championship. So, Collyn, do you get the sense that Gamecock women are still struggling to get respect on the national level because they didn't beat UConn last year? We've heard Dawn Staley say that she knows a lot of people don't like it, but Gamecock women are the defending and reigning national champs.
Yeah, and you know what? They don't have, national UConn leader championships. They have national championships. South Carolina can't control, who they play in games in the tournament. They just have to go out there and play. Mississippi State pulled off the upset last year with UConn, and they lose the national title, and not the Huskies, and South Carolina can't control that. So they played who they played, and they won. And, their name's on the trophy, and I think that's the only thing that really matters for Dawn Staley and that team is they get to print the T-shirts, they have the parade, and, they're the ones that are going to be kind of immortalized. So I think they're kind of taking that, I think, to heart a little bit, and they're going to use that against the Huskies on Thursday, just as people said that, we have to beat them to the national title. You're the national champions, and I think it'll be somewhat of a motivating factor for this team as, the game gets closer and throughout practice this week leading up to the game.
So the Gamecock women have never defeated UConn, 0-5 all time, and UConn has beaten the Gamecocks the last 2 seasons. In fact, the Huskies beat the Gamecocks last year. That was UConn's 100th consecutive victory, part of that long win streak, 111 total games they won in a row before they were beaten in the national semis last year. And, of course, the Gamecocks went on to win the national championship. So UConn coming to the CLA for a 7 o'clock tip Thursday night on ESPN. Should be a packed house for that ball game. Collyn, Gamecock women lead the nation in attendance right now.
And, give credit to Dawn Staley. She's created an absolute monster of a fan base for women's basketball, which really isn't found anywhere else in the country. I mean, they're averaging close to, I think, 12,000 fans a game, which is, would be great for, men's basketball, women's basketball, whatever. It's phenomenal for any basketball program. So to average that kind of fan base. And it's even amplified with teams that come in like UConn, like Missouri. And I don't expect anything different on Thursday. It's a 7 p.m. tip, so it's not too late for most people. And it should be a fun one. I'm expecting a huge crowd. I'm expecting a loud crowd by the start of the game.
So UConn coming into the CLA on Thursday night this week. And, Collyn, this is Gino Auriemma's 33rd year at the helm of the UConn women's basketball program. He's won 11 national championships at UConn. And I thought it was interesting, Collyn, UConn beat Tulsa back on January 18th. This was not 2 weeks ago. And it was an 18-point home victory over Tulsa, but Auriemma described it as the most disgraceful effort by a UConn women's team in his 33 years at the helm of that program. So since then, UConn has put together 3 strong performances. They've beaten Temple, Memphis, and I mentioned the win over Tulane on Saturday, a game in which in 20 minutes of action, Gabby Williams for UConn approached a triple-double, 13 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds. And UConn did a fantastic job on Tulane's leading scorer. Colby Morgan came in averaging over 21 points a ball game, and she had just 2 points on Saturday against UConn on 1 for 10 shooting. So Auriemma sent a bit of a message to his team after that win on January the 18th, and the UConn women have responded, Collyn.
They're good. They always have the 5 stars. They always have the great players, and it's showing. So, I think it's going to be a tough test for South Carolina, obviously, but, UConn always is like this. They always have those guys or those girls that, are averaging, double-digit points. I think 6 players on their team right now are averaging over 10 points a game, and, they put up, they shoot the lights out. They're shooting over 50%. From the field. They, defend, and, they make it really uncomfortable for other teams to play because of how good their athletes are. And there's only a few teams in the country with athletes like that, like UConn. And South Carolina's kind of on par and has athletes similar to those that UConn has, and they also have the best player in the country, in Asia Wilson. So I think it'll be a fun one to watch come Thursday night.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I was looking at tournament seed projections before we started the podcast today. UConn obviously on that number 1 seed line, and the Gamecocks are on the number 2 seed line right now. So this is definitely a possible preview of a potential Final Four matchup or maybe even a national championship game matchup for the women. So, again, 7 o'clock start Thursday night at the CLA for the Gamecocks and the UConn women. And then on Monday night next week, South Carolina will travel to second-ranked Mississippi State. Very, very rare that you play the top 2 teams in the country in consecutive outings, but that's what the Gamecock women are faced with here in the next week. So, Collyn, we look forward to reading more about this game on Gamecock Central, and we thank you for the time today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Collyn Taylor, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for joining us.